What up? What's happening? Not the best greeting, eh? In the game. What up? No. Maybe I got to work on that. But at the same time, I don't want it to be all calculated and planned and old school TV. You know, most of the stuff like my rock sign that goes back from being in a rock band. Enjoy the hostilities, my friends. I just started saying that. A buddy of mine, a really good ring announcer, used the term hostilities in ring announcing, and I just loved it, and it just floated around in there. And obviously, we've heard fighting referred to as hostilities many times, but it was re-entered into my mind from this killer ring announcer. And then one day I just said that, maybe 6 months or a year later, but I'm pretty sure I remember that guy saying that term as part of his job and thinking it was amazing. Neither he nor I invented the idea of the hostilities, but both of us use them. I forget his name now, Pierre. Fantastic ring announcer. I'm a big fan of this guy from Montreal. But, whoa, good start. This is Ask Robin Black, number 14. When I had my old job over at Fight Network, we did a show that was hashtag one word Ask Robin Black, and I'm sure I did with my man Chase, who works with me over at TSN now. I'm sure I did at least a dozen over there. So although this is number 14 here, we got to be at, well, probably more, maybe closer to 30 altogether, but maybe more. Hell, these things all blend together. It is a pleasure to do this one, this show or this podcast, because my whole thing is I just love finding new things to look at, finding different perspectives, finding different beautiful little elements of fighting. And sometimes they're technical, and sometimes they're mental, and sometimes they're coaching related, and sometimes they're how you train your body. Or people are asking me questions here on Periscope. If you're on SoundCloud or iTunes, I have my phone out. It's Periscope. I want to let my friends on Periscope know I can't take the questions until around the middle here, because I have some questions. This is Ask Robin Black 14. It is the I was going to call it the all GSP edition. George St-Pierre. I was going to call it the all GSP edition, but GSP is not alone in this. GSP, Bisping, Tyron Woodley has been a part of all the talk that has been happening around this. Dana. Could have put Dana in the title. Maybe we will put Dana in the title. All of it is connected, right? From my perspective, I've been examining. I'm a lifelong Michael Bisping fan, lifelong, and I'm a big fan of Tyron Woodley and a big supporter of Tyron Woodley's. But George is not only one of my favorite fighters ever, he's also a friend. Bisping's a friend too. But George is a friend, but also I've been studying him very closely over the last couple months. And I've been embedded in some of his training and stuff. I'll tell you about that in a bit. So I was going to talk about George, but it all really is part of the same long, winding trail. George St-Pierre will be fighting, what is it, November 5th? Something like that? November 3rd, November 4th, November 5th. It's one of those. It's the first weekend in November. November, right? It's not October. Yeah, it's November. Which is a long time. He's been training. We'll talk about all that. People will debate who he should be fighting. People debate why he's fighting. People debate what he'll look like, all of that. So we're going to get into it all. And I'm very excited about this fight. Happy for my friends to fight each other. As funny as that is, because they both want to fight each other. Guys, why wouldn't Bisping want to fight George St-Pierre? Why wouldn't he? George might be rusty, might be, not quite there, might not be back mentally, might not really want to. He's way smaller. What if, pretty sure he just beat Anderson Silva? Excuse me. He just beat Anderson Silva, one of the greatest of all time. Now he can fight George St-Pierre. The money is way bigger. Oh, why on earth wouldn't Bisping want that fight? So I'm happy for him. I'm a big fucking Michael Bisping fan. And, of course, George is a good friend. And I'm very happy for George. This is the fight that he wanted. It's meaningful. If he can win it, he's been a two-division champ. There haven't been many of those. That's something to come back for. Bisping is a fight he believes he can win for whatever reasons. They're his own. Bisping is also more money than most of these other fights. That's where the business is. Hey, Mark, you want to do this job for $200 or you want to do it for $6,000? Do you want to do the same, pretty similar job that you do now for $1,000, or you want to do it for $9,000? Yeah, but bro, I would say that. Robin, like, what about the rankings? Talk about all that shit. All right, let's get down to it. So Ask Robin Black, number 14, GSP. But it's not just the GSP. It is GSP, Bisping, T. Wood, maybe Dana White, whatever I'll addition, right? Thank you for the questions. Thank you guys. When I'll ask for some over here on Periscope as well in a bit. We're live on Periscope, by the way. You can get to Periscope when I am live, which is fairly often, by following me on Twitter at Robin Black MMA. Also, please follow me on Instagram. I'm putting up something every single day, many times a day sometimes. It's at Robin Black MMA on Instagram. So let's get to it. Sometimes I like to group questions together because they force you to think flowing instead of just overly pinpoint something. So here's two. GSP was ahead of his time. Mike McDude. I wonder if he's a McGregor fan. I have a feeling. GSP was ahead of his time. The most complete tactical artist. Has MMA evolved beyond GSP now, or can he still fight his style and dominate? Let's combine it with this. At Flashes of Steel. I like that. When is the TSN piece on George going to be available on YouTube? Okay, so that's a perfect combination. I'm pulling these at random, trying to combine them at random. There's always a way. I was on my buddy's, the Loaded Joe's podcasts, and you can, if you feel something in your skin enough, you're a guy that, you know, is really, really into fishing. You can compare anything to fishing. Fighting and the martial arts are in my skin right now. It's like in my blood. When people say, oh, you know, it's in his blood. That's a saying. What does it mean? It means like you feel that, like you're so connected to it. And I can combine any of these and we can make them make sense. And it's fun. It's part of the fun for me. So when is the TSN piece on George going to be available on YouTube? And GSP, Tactical Artist, has MMA evolved? I like this question. Has MMA evolved beyond GSP now? Or can he fight his style and dominate? So first off, what they're asking about with the TSN piece, I work for TSN here in Canada. If you're in Canada, you know what it is because it's the best. It's the best sports channel in Canada's history. And that's not my opinion because I work there. Everybody will agree. Somebody might say The Score. I used to work there. We did the Score fighting series. It was different and fun and experimental and cool, but it's gone. Somebody might say Sportsnet, but I would disagree. This is better. If you're not from Canada and you're from the States, think ESPN. TSN is our version of that. So they've got me. They do this beautiful, this documentary department. And Josh and Simon, the guys over there, they do this incredible work and storytelling work. And we're doing a half-hour-long documentary on George, and we've been working on it for a couple of months now. When will it come out? The fight is the first week of November, so it'll probably be out mid-October. But what it has done for me, so it's cool. Hey, cool. You got a job. You get to go see your friend and talk. For me, the work is always just the greatest thing. I just love it. I just love doing what I do. But sometimes, like this, and when I'm over in Russia to commentate, coming up soon, sometimes you get these incredible chances to learn. And life is about that. For me, that's what I believe it's about. Go and find things to learn. And imagine you get to go and study the best martial artist of his generation, maybe of all time, train, and I've got to train with him. I rolled some jiu-jitsu with him. It's up on my Instagram. There's a few shots of it. I also trained karate with him. He brought in a number of the best karate guys in the world to train with. It's been incredible. And also see his thought process and see it's not just how does he train, how does he think, how does he eat, how does he assess risk, how does he assess chances of victory. Everything is strategized. That's who he is. Everything is a risk analysis. Everything is a risk-reward comparison. Everything. Why, even when we went to do this documentary, I'm his friend. He trusts me, and he can trust me. Rodolphe, his manager, who's also a friend and knows, he said, look, George likes you. So that's not a problem. And TSN has always been good to us. That's not a problem. He said, the issue here is, what are we going to do? How much can we get out of? How much work is this going to take? How many days? How much interruption to George's training? Because everything in George St-Pierre's life is about training. How much can he train without getting injured? And how can he improve the amount he can train without getting injured? And how can he improve the amount he can recover so that he doesn't get injured and train more? That's all he wants to do. So how much will this interrupt his training? And in return, how many people will see it? Because if enough people see it for this amount of interruption, we can say no to all of these other pieces of press because we'll know this one will pay this amount and it only cost, it's all a risk reward analysis. It's all a cost analysis. Opportunity cost is one way of looking at it. And so we came back and said, this will be on TSN. It'll also be on W5, which is kind of like 60 Minutes in Canada. So they look at it. They're like, okay, it's going to take 6 or 8 long days and 10 training sessions and a couple of trips and some honesty with somebody he trusts. In return, it's going to be seen by, maybe 500,000 Canadians or 1 million Canadians in a country that has 36 million, one out of that. Plus everything's a cost analysis. Why am I telling you that? Why and how am I connecting these things? Because when you say that George is the greatest of his generation and has the world changed in such a way, he was ahead of his time, the most complete tactical artist. We're talking about tactics and strategies right now in something as simple as that. Something as simple as being on television or doing promotion has to be done. It's part of the job. Has MMA evolved beyond GSP now, or can he still fight his style and dominate? Okay. MMA has absolutely evolved past GSP from 5 years ago. That GSP totally evolved past that. Totally. If that GSP shows up, Michael destroy him. Michael beat that guy easy. But he's not that guy. Are you 5 years ago? What's happened in the last 5 years of your life? If you're like me and I am going to be 48 this week. It's fucking crazy. I can't believe that. So I was 42, 43, 5-6 years ago. And I was finishing my last fight. I was in crazy shape. My job the last 5 years has been to not get out of shape, do my best to stay healthy-ish, try to learn some things, not gain 50 pounds, et cetera, et cetera. So at my age, I'm maintaining. What have you done? What have you done? Are you 17? Have you gotten stronger now that you're 22? Have you gotten smarter? George, still in his prime, he's getting into his mid-30s range, or he's in his mid-30s now, and he has trained for the last 5 years as if he'd never left. Never. He has literally improved every single day for 5 years. So when we look at George now, and this is where we're going to do some kind of breakdown for this. We have the time now. We're getting there. We have more and more technology all the time. If you've followed what we do here, I used to do for the UFC. I've done them and we'll do them again. And for Fight Network, I used to in the old days, and I'm working on them for TSN. Built using highlights and moments, a storytelling / teaching tool to analyze fights. We'll do that again, but I'm telling you now, and you can quote me on this, it's all going to be bullshit. Because every piece of footage of George St-Pierre from the old days, he's nothing like that now. Nothing. It's not the same guy. It's not even close to the same guy. Everything. He has trained every single day, not to be fit or to stay fit, to grow. George is completely different. The things he did well, he does better. The things he didn't do all that well, he does better. He thinks differently. He moves differently. His body is shaped differently. The dude is fucking 205 to 210 pounds, fit, big and strong. Because 4 or 5 years, you have the time to do that. You can gain, half a pound of lean muscle a month with hard work. George is a clean athlete. He's a hyper clean athlete. So you can gain up to half a pound, a little more if you're the insanely driven. Let's say, 0.7 of a pound. How many ounces in a pound? 12 or 16? 16? We're going to go with, normal people can gain 6 pounds a year of lean muscle. We're going to say George could gain 7. That means if one of his main, 16, thank you, sir. If one of his main goals was to gain weight in 5 years, he could gain 35 pounds of lean muscle. And when I ask you what you've done in the last 5 years and you think about it now, you're like, shit, I could gain 6 pounds of lean muscle a year. I could have gained 35 pounds of lean muscle with the right amount of protein, the right diet, the right exercise, half a pound a month. For 5 years, you could have gained 30 pounds of lean muscle. So George, who used to walk around at 190, now walks around at 205 to 210, fit and lean, because he didn't even have to get near that. He could have gained up to 35. He gained 20. And now he wears it. It's part of him. If you go take a bunch of steroids and you gain 30 pounds or 20 pounds in 4 months, you will move terribly. George has done this half a pound at a time. Slowly, it's become part of him. So he's big and strong, but he's different now. His physicality is different. So when you ask, George was so far out of his time as the game evolved, can he still dominate that way? No, that guy can't. The guy who did he beat right before Hendricks?
George?
Yeah, or in the fights before. There was Condit, there was Diaz, there was Shields. That guy, Michael beat that guy. But George is nothing like that guy. His body's not the same. His mind is completely different. And he trains all kinds of things that baseball players train, that fucking poker players train, things to make his brain operate better, things to train his reflexes, to train his nervous system. I watched him do it. I've analyzed him do it. I've tried those things. I've done training with him over the last while to train the blind spot. When this punch comes from here, there's a spot I can't see it. George can see it from there because you can actually improve your peripheral vision. There's training for that. He's done it for 5 years. When something comes at you, it's a reflex to try to slip it. That can be sped up, not just through repetition, but through the ability to make your brain make neural pathways. If you watch my McGregor-Mayweather analysis number 3, if you haven't, please check it out. I'm very proud of that one. It's going in a direction of something interesting. And it's not there yet, but it will be one day. Could take 10 years. But we talked about algorithms as just when you go and you ship a package from FedEx and it ends up at Mark's house, what happened? Algorithms are the math, the strategy, the tactics, the step-by-step process where it goes to this place and it gets sorted in this way and then it ends up at this thing and it goes on a truck to an airplane to a thing to a... That's all an algorithm. And that's slowly improved. But there's hardware there too. It's hardware. We didn't get into that. Something we're going to get into in the next Mayweather-McGregor, but I'll give you a little taste of it right now. As it's at that place, there's machines that sort it. And those machines put it on a little treadmill or whatever you call those things as they move. It's not a treadmill, but it's a conveyor belt. There's also an interesting hold in catch wrestling called the conveyor belt. We'll talk about it another time. But this is the shit my brain does sometimes. So it goes onto a conveyor belt and it ends up into a thing and it gets sorted again and it goes onto a truck and there's hardware involved. You train that too. They're called neural pathways. It's real stuff. Your brain actually, it's neuroplasticity. You've heard of it. You've seen it on commercials. Most of those commercials are bullshit, by the way. Those games will not train your brain in the way they claim. Most of them. I don't know. I can't speak to all of them. But neural pathways get created in your brain. So when that thing happens, you react in a particular way. You train your brain. George has been working on that. It's a completely different guy. Completely different. Doesn't mean you can't go and say keys to victory and then show like the highlights, the double leg, and show George doing the jab and show George jab. Because if George was brilliant with the positioning to throw a jab and the way to throw it without giving you any kind of tells or whatever the details was, the way to shoot the double and accelerate, whatever, it's probably just better. In fact, I've seen him wrestle. I saw him wrestle at the Montreal Wrestling Club against Olympic level wrestlers. Some things that we speak of as absolutes in the game of mixed martial arts. Oh, well, the game of wrestling, the simple things, the single doesn't work much anymore. And there's some truth to that. For quite a while, it wasn't really working. The Nova Yanao team developed an entire game, and even TriStar, as far away as 7-8 years ago, when I was training at TriStar with sort of the advanced or pro class, they start with the single. All right, one partner gets the single, work. Twice a week, multiple times, working off the single, so giving away something and training that way becomes so normal. Guy has your single leg. Oh no, man, he's got the single. Fuck. Alex Garcia has the single on me 6 rounds twice a week for 5 years. I don't give a fuck he's got a single. So things like that change to the point where we know now. Yoel Romero stopped being capable of taking down Bobby Knuckles. Wrestling has changed. Certain kinds of wrestling just not working these days. Fucking George will make it work, I'll tell you that. But when we make these comparisons, I had the incredible good fortune. I have insight onto George St-Pierre. It's such a gift to have when I see this fight starting to come together, to know the things that I know and to have seen the things that I've seen. And should feel this guy grapple. Jesus Christ, it's like, hurts now. So I grappled with him, it was 2 weeks ago Friday. Today is Monday, so that's 14, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Yeah, I just counted on my fingers. 17 days ago. And my hips still have tightness. I'm a 48-year-old man who, 5 years past my bottom level pro fighting career. But my hips are still tight to the point that space where your lower back meets the top of your glutes, your butt, it still hurts because of the tightness on the outside of the hips. If you ever feel pain there, that is the pulling of the hips that's causing that. Still hurts. And he was trying to be gentle. He's a very trustworthy sparring partner. He's just so strong. And so he's a different guy. So I'm hoping you guys will. When you see on Twitter or on Facebook or in analysis or whatever, and people are saying, oh, George, this, just understand, correct these guys. You don't have to tell them I told you. You can. But you don't have to. Correct these guys. It's not the same guy. You're talking about fucking 5 years ago, George. Are you the same guy as 5 years ago? Is anybody? You're better or you're worse? He's fucking better. Way better. So that's pretty exciting. I'm so thrilled I've been able to see that. And back to the TSN piece, mid-October, we'll have it out. I've been deep into watching his wrestling a number of times. I've grappled with him. I've sparred karate with him. And I've watched him train his brain in multiple ways. I've watched him train physically in a pool, sprinting, chatted with him, talked about where he's been and where he's going. I have unique insight into George. I'm going to share it with you from today. The things I can. Not going to give away anything. He's my friend, and Bisping's my friend. I'm not going to tell him any extra stuff about Bisping either. Although I have a lot more analysis about Bisping and his energy systems. If I'm George, nobody ever tried to fatigue Bisping. Nobody. And when they did, they fucking failed bad. Mike's in the best shape for fighting. The best physically, he's like a middle distance runner. So in one of the breakdowns, I break down kind of his anaerobic threshold, and that is the key. It's a conversation for another day. We've had it before. But when people say, oh man, this guy's got good cardio, or oh, I don't know if his cardio is going to hold up. That is an oversimplified thing that in no way really explains anything. There's many things at play there. Many things at play. Fighters understand, although they don't always. A lot of the things that we all say, the global conversation ends up at the low and mid-level coaching convo. All right, guys, you got to train your cardio. Fuck, if you're still working on that level, just because that's how it's talked about, you're in a lot of trouble. Michael Bisping will fucking murder you. If you're a 185-pounder and you think, get out there and train your cardio, bro, we got to get you ready for Mike. Mike will crush you. George, too. This is going to be one of the highest level. It's good. They're called energy systems. Your body has multiple energy systems that it uses in many ways. They recover in different ways. They work off each other in different ways. And these two will push each other in ways we've almost never seen. Just that aspect, the trying to fatigue, play with each other's recovery, all those things, that is going to be one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in my life. I know I'm a nerd, but man, I can't wait just for that. Let's move on. Okay, let's do this one on its own. Some of these are questions I don't normally field, but I think it's a decent time to talk about some of these things because of the changes that we see. Are people being hard on the champ, Tyron Woodley? This I do talk about. At Glenn Mackey 19, are people being hard on champ at T Woodley? GSP considered the best, and he took no risks, 0 risks. The champ shouldn't have to take risks. So this is a topic I actually do explore and have explored and will continue to explore. One more time. Does GSP, are people being hard on the champ, Tyron Woodley? GSP's considered the best, and he took 0 risks. The champ shouldn't have to take risks. Okay, very interesting topic for me because it's not one topic. And these things fascinate me. Sorry, if you heard a crunch, I'm drinking iced coffee from my thing. I don't have it in my Rogan mug today. I just have that out. I also have been putting out some Bruce Lee stuff, and I don't know. This is not a set. If you're listening on iTunes or SoundCloud, please check us out on the YouTube channel. You'll see where we hang. It's youtube.com/RobinBlack. But we hang out in an art gallery, and it has shaped the way Mark and I think. And it's absolutely positively shaped the way that we do art and the way we chat and the way we explore ideas. It's shaped the way that Mark makes little graphic things that we're going to keep doing all the way towards the live show and beyond and all those kinds of things. But we're starting to jazz it up a little bit too. And plus, now we've grown to a size where there's going to be sponsors and probably, which will give us a chance to go get more interviews and travel a little more, and we'll start putting those out on the set. My sunglasses are here. My buddy Rick gave me those. I like them. They're Porsche design. I would never be able to afford $700 sunglasses, but my buddy gave me some, so I put them out. They're so cool. So this is more than one question, right? Artem versus Holloway. Somebody just popped up on Periscope over here. So this is absolutely positively more than one question. I'm going to read it one more time. Please bear with me. I'm sorry. I'm just flowing with it, having fun today. Are people being hard on champ Tyron Woodley? GSP considered the best. He took 0 risks. The champ shouldn't have to take risks. Okay. It is more than one question, and it is many answers. Absolutely, positively, people can fuck off with their mistreatment of Tyron Woodley. From my perspective, I don't mean it in any type of rude. I'm not telling you fuck off. I am not judging you in any way. I am pulling it back to one thing, to one small thing, and that is in a martial arts contest, fuck excitement and risk. This is, again, I'm compartmentalizing what we're doing here. Fuck risk. I'm here for 2 reasons. To win a martial arts contest and to protect my brain. Now, I'll get to your part, so don't be mad at me. Because we all have different perspectives, and I'm dead serious. I'm not judging yours. I'm just narrowing the focus here for a moment. Win a martial arts contest, preserve my brain. Sorry, what am I doing? What am I saying? Number 1, preserve my brain. Number 2, win a martial arts contest, sporting event, fight, whatever you want to call it. Man, I can't believe I fucked that up like that. What am I thinking? It is number one is preserve my brain. Of course it is. It has to be. Isn't that it in your whole life? You know why you drive the way you drive? Because number one, preserve your brain. You know? Why do why do we not jump straight down onto the ground? We want to preserve our brain. Why do we not hit each other in the head with baseball bats? We know we should preserve each other's brains. I mean, fuck. That's what it is to be you, is your brain. So number one is preserve your brain. And number two is win. Under those circumstances, and since that's also what I'm interested in, I am an enormous Tyron Woodley fan. Enormous. Look at him. The dude, like his work ethic. Look at the what he's built his physicality into. Look at what he's built his skills into. He beats everybody, you know? And he's brilliant. So I'm a big fan. Now, depending on what's important to Tyron Woodley, he can stop right there. He has every right to. And I would if I was him. I would, how's it going? I would also, if I was him, I'd stop there. Preserve your brain, win a contest. Killer. Let's do that. What else is important to him? And it depends. Everybody's different. What's important to you? Once you've done those things, do you say to yourself, I want to make a lot of money. I want to be super famous. I want to do some of the things that Conor McGregor has done. I want to do some of the things that the biggest and the best. I want to be in movies. I want to be a celebrity. I want to, whether you are talking about money or fame or influence or any of these things, if you want that, that's really important to you, you add the third layer. You add that third layer. The audience. So it's up to you. It's up to him. And when you add the third layer of the audience, also notice the third layer of the audience, it's the third finger, by the way. He can do this too. He can just say, I don't want this one. I don't care about this, right? I say this to the audience. That's what he can say if he likes. Protect his brain, win a contest, and then if it's important to him, get an audience, influence the audience, make money off the audience, if that's important to him. Is it? Only he can answer that. Because if it is, and he cares about that, then he has to go care what they say. And you know what they say? They say, I don't want to watch him fight. I find him boring. I am not a giant fan. This is them. This is not me. I do want to watch him fight. I do find him enjoyable. I am a fan. That's what I am. But I like different things, right? So if it's important to him to make a ton of money, to have a ton of influence, or to be famous in some way, or any combination of those things, because they do all work together, as we know. If you end up with 5 million Twitter followers, you make more money. If you make more money, you do other things, you can get more Twitter followers. Whatever. Any of these things all connect. Are those things important to Tyron Woodley? I don't know. I saw Tyron Woodley in LA, and I kind of nodded, and he was coming over, but then he didn't come over because we don't know each other that well. I kind of wish I did make an effort, but I was sitting. I didn't want to bother him either. So we kind of both went to, and then we didn't. And it's too bad. I'd really like to talk to him a little bit more and find out what's important to him. But I think if he happened to be seeing this, or if somebody points this to him, Woodley, protect your brain, win the fight, be the champ. Is the other thing important to you? Is it? Just ask yourself that. Do I want to make a ton of money? Do I want to be famous? Are those things important to me? If so, then you got to listen to these guys. You have to. They're right. They're always going to be right. Or you'll have another option. Number 3 could be a different option. Tell them to go fuck themselves and be rude to them. Tell them off. Tell them how much you hate them. Tell them how little they matter. To call them sheep, call them whatever. That's an option as well. If you're frustrated and you want to do that, what you're doing right now is playing the kind of, you're a broadcaster, saying and doing the right things. That shit's sailed. Being the say the right things, have the calculated answers and stuff, it doesn't work anymore because everybody thinks to do that. Protect your brain, Tyron Woodley. Win those fights, Tyron Woodley. I will be a lifelong fan. You do those things. And there are others like me. And we'll support you. If you need more than us for money, power, or influence, then you got to take them into account. You do. I think that's fair. So that's going to be up to Woodley, and I'm glad it's up to him, because when a guy is as good and as special and as great a martial artist and great an athlete as he is, I like that it's in their hands, and it is in his. Well, this is interesting. Again, this is one of those ones that typically I don't have a preference. And maybe I just answered my own question as to why. I like that this is in Tyron Woodley's hands. You know what he's earned is the right to have influence on his own life. This guy's dedicated his entire life to this. And by default, we should all just appreciate him. That's my opinion. That is my job. That is Joe's job. That is Grisham's job. That's Brian Stan's job. That's Dan Hardy's job. That's all of our jobs. John Anik, fucking love you, John Anik. You're the best. It's Brendan Schaub. It's anybody who's in this thing. It's our job to have people see why Woodley's last 3 fights have been brilliant. So we're letting you down, Tyron, and I promise I'll do my best to try to do my part. I swear to you, man. But while we're letting you guys down, Tyron, it's up to you. You get to do what you want. You say fuck them and keep winning, and I will always support that. Or you can go, oh, God damn it, do I want to roll the dice, take risks, and up the chance that I lose and up the chance that I get injured and lower my protect the brain from number 1 to 2 or 3? I wouldn't if I were you. So that I like that it's up to them. It's not up to me. I'm a fan either way. And that brings me to this question. Nick Long Royal. Who would you personally rather see GSP face? Woodley or Bisping? Okay. So, first of all, I'll just address the personal. Personally, I'd like to see George fight both those guys. I'd also like to see George fight Yoel Romero, and I'd like to see George fight Damian Maia, and I would like to see George fight Jorge Masvidal, 170 pounds. Fucking Jorge, just fuck this guy up, man. Fucking get in there. Fucking easy money.
Whole season.
Yeah. What's that?
His new thing's whole season.
Whole season? Yeah, I'll go all fucking. I'll declare whole season on this GSP. Easy money. My Jorge imitation's not the best, but I love Jorge Masvidal. Fucking love Jorge Masvidal. So I'd like to see Jorge Masvidal fight George Saban. That literally brought a tear to my eye for a second. Literally, I felt it moisten. That'd be wicked. So I want it all. I want all those. So you just asked me me? I cannot answer that for you. But I can answer what I think outside of me. And personally, I think George should do what George wants to do. And the interesting part, so Woodley, we go back to, the third thing. Money, power, and influence if he goes out and changes and takes risks. George, risk-reward scenario. For some reason, he got the money, the power, and the influence while keeping the risks low. And it could be something as simple as likability, could be timing, it could be anything. Could be anything. So he got that. Woodley probably won't get that without something further, some number 3. So he doesn't have leverage. And it frustrates him. I can see it. And I feel his pain, man. I have no leverage to get what I want. I want to fucking commentate the UFC. But I can't convince the 2 or 3 barriers between me and that job. I don't have any leverage. So you keep doing the things that you do. You move on. You can't let it eat you alive. That ate me alive for 3 weeks, maybe 4. Woodley, this has been bothering him for a couple of years. The audience doesn't appreciate him. The UFC doesn't appreciate him. George should fight me. The rankings, Stephen Thompson won't. When I saw, and again, I'm not hating on Woodley, but he's saying, Thompson won't get this. Woodley doesn't get to pick who fights him. He doesn't have any leverage. I'm not saying any of this is right. I'm not, it's the game. You need some kind of leverage. And people don't, he doesn't have number 3, so he doesn't have any leverage. So he's not going to get to make this. And George wants to fight Mike, and Mike wants to fight George. And the number 3 ingredient, risks or fame or influence or popularity or money, all of that goes to George versus GSP, George versus Bisping. So it gets made. So of the 3 great athletes, fighters, martial artists in it, happy for Mike, happy for George, feels shitty for Woodley. But if he's going to control his controllables, it is find a way to up his ability, money, power, influence, fame. That's on him. Sucks. This fucking sucks. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, not for 1 second. That's the world we live in. So our options are the world's unfair. Dana doesn't treat me right. Maybe it's race related, and maybe it is. I don't understand race relations. I don't understand America. I was hanging out with Kevin Lee in Quebec. We were doing a thing, and the amount of racism that popped up on our live stream, I was shocked. And I said, dude, does this happen? He's like, yeah, every single day. So up here in Canada, we don't see it to the same degree. But I don't prepare to understand that. And please don't let's not get pulled into a conversation about that, because that's not an area of expertise of mine. And I don't know who to judge or how to judge, and I don't want to judge. But hey, I don't know. Maybe there's something to that. But even if there is, he still has to control what he can control. And he needs more fame or more money or more audience influence if he wants to get what he wants to get. It's not complicated. It's actually very simple. It's reality. What I'm saying is reality. These 2 things will make the deciders more money than these 2 things. So they're going to go with these 2. That says 100% of the time. All 3 of these things want to, but the 2 that will do that. Who gets to decide? It is somewhat subjective. And this is where it gets frustrating, is when you believe it's some other reason. Why am I not commentating the UFC? Again, I'm coming back to myself. It's hard not to think about these things in your own life. There's something that you're in the same situation. I think I actually would be better for the end thing. So I have a perceived injustice. I'm like, somebody's trying to stop me. There's somebody not letting me do it. There's somebody who's got their own agenda. Maybe if you treat them different, and that may not be true, but Woodley can be thinking the same thing. But the truth is the truth. It's the people who decide will decide based on their best information of what will be best for the big picture. At least that's usually what they decide. When you feel like you are that, and you're still not getting it, you create a perceived injustice. So I think Woodley's sitting there dealing with that. And it's not easy. It's not easy. I know it. Again, he's dealt with it, at least it feels like, that feeling that he is not getting what he deserves. He called himself the least appreciated UFC champion ever, all that kind of stuff. He's dealt with this perceived injustice for what feels like a couple of years. If I felt weird for 5 weeks, I can't imagine how tough that is on somebody. But it may also drive him. But ultimately, it doesn't really matter what he wants. It's all about influence these days. Almost everything is. If you want to change something, you change the amount of influence you have. And you do it through whatever you can do to improve you. Make you more valuable. That's all you can do. You can't worry, it's not fair, it's our rankings is bullshit, maybe it's race, maybe it's, I've been mistreated, this is bullshit, I should have got that job, whatever. We're wasting our time. All we can do is improve what value we bring. That's it. And if somewhere along the line you're like, yeah, but I'm sure I have enough value, you have to make it even more undeniable. You might have to do it to the point that it's 10 times more than even, Steven, because you have to make it so undeniable that other people start going, hey, asshole, why didn't you give this? It's so obvious Tyron Woodley should be in this. Who's the matchmaker here? Hey, this guy should be the guy commentating. Who the fuck? Why? you got to make people look bad for overlooking you. And Woodley's in that situation. So, but again, is it important to him? Dude's protected his brain incredibly well for the last 3 giant prize fights. And he's won 2.3 of them. He won 33%, and the other 66% he was a draw. Didn't take a lot of abuse. That's pretty impressive. So, but who would I rather see? I wish they could all get it. I wish they could all fight each other, and then Woodley and Bisping after George fights them both. That's what I'd like to see. Okay, a couple more. This ties right into this, but I think there's a different perspective on this. Does GSP feel guilty at all for jumping in line? Having never proven himself at 185, shouldn't contenders get it to be a legit sport? I'll tell you, GSP doesn't feel guilty. Not one bit. Straight up. Neither should he. Absolutely fucking not. And it isn't a legit sport. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. When people fight each other, it is the most legit of all sports in human history. There's no more legit sporting event than 2 of the highest level fighters fighting each other. The rankings, the belts, all that stuff is an illusion. The fight itself is the most legit sporting contest in human history. Everything else is an illusion. Everything else has nothing to do with reality. When you're having, and I know some people will feel immense frustration there because we're all different. And some of us have this sense of justice where it's built around structure and fairness and order. Order. He is the champ. He's the number 1 contender. This guy should beat him. This guy beat order. That sense of order is at the root of who some of us are. And it makes us special. It's not a knock. It makes you incredibly good at certain things. Makes you incredibly organized at certain things. People who have that tendency get incredible gifts out of having that tendency, searching for order, making sense of hierarchies, matching and lining things up and anticipating the moves within that hierarchy and that justice. So if some of you, that is deeply ingrained in your identity as a human. And so it's going to be hard for you to even make sense of what I'm saying. It's an illusion. You're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? It's everything. You're surrounded by people everywhere that are different than you, just as I am, just as Mark is. A couple of people here in the studio, I don't know who they are. All I know is I may see the world quite different than them. That sense of justice, for you, I'm going to arbitrarily say that's 1 out of 6 people where that is just who they are. Let's make it 5, 1 out of 5, for simplicity. I'm fabricating this percentage. 1 out of 5. Fighting and other sports, 3 to 4 out of 5 has become normal. This hierarchy, this ranking, these divisions. The winner of this division against the winner of that division to win the AFC title to face the NFC. Is it the NFC? Something like that. And those 2 were against those guys, and then finally they'll fight. I mean, football is a type of team war. They will fight, and they'll have the Super Bowl. That's everything. It's nothing. It's nothing. It's fabricated. It doesn't mean anything. Rankings don't mean shit. Not a fucking thing. And we've been saying this for years. Me and Ramdeen have been obsessed with this for years. Well, it's turning out that we were right. Not to pat myself on the back or anything, or stroke myself here in front of you guys, but they don't mean anything. John wants to fight, Brock Lesnar. Fucking Connor's fighting a boxer, the greatest boxer. How the fuck is that happening? Everybody wants to fight something else. None of that stuff matters. The belt doesn't matter. The order, if he didn't get injured, he would have actually fought him, and he would have then meant that. But because he got injured, this guy came in at the last second. Oh my God, he's the champ. It doesn't mean anything. I know it means something to the individuals. And for them, I really care. I care that Demetrius Johnson, although 10 years from now, we may never look back at these things again, we live in a world of absolute disruption. The entire world we're living in is changing. You're not going to understand your kid's world at all. You'll be like, but how? The Super Bowl may not exist in 15 years. I'm telling you the truth. You don't have to look very far. If 100% of these guys are getting a debilitating brain injury that will destroy their lives in their 50s, and suddenly television itself is being disrupted, and cities and their ability to make these arenas are being disrupted, and you can't watch football on Instagram, all that shit may not exist. We're living in a world of absolute disruption. I'm happy for Demetrius Johnson to break a record that still matters. But one day, nobody will give a shit because it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything. What means something is the moments of combat. What means something is the fight itself. And I take great pride in whatever tiny percentage I've played. Because this is all I've been saying for 10 years. Nobody should give a fuck about the rankings, the conflict, Twitter, what they said, what Dana said, belts. You've just taken two of the greatest athletes, artists, geniuses. They've taken all of the knowledge and experience in human history, and they've taken their amount of it and trained themselves in preparation to do dangerous combat against each other in front of all of us. That's what matters. That's what matters. Why the fuck would George feel guilty when he's going to go fight a bigger, stronger man? Actually, Mike's not necessarily bigger and stronger. George is insanely big and strong right now. But why on earth would he feel guilty? Something about some rankings? Something about a bunch of people who don't train martial arts, who were hired by another guy who has a website that exists on a laptop but that actually isn't physical, who gave that guy a job, who applied for a thing to get a thing, to be able to have a vote on a thing of whether he's ahead of this guy. That's all fucking nonsense. It's not a fucking shred of reality to any of that. Nothing. The number 3 contender, it's fucking bullshit. It doesn't mean anything. The middleweight belt. Most people right now, and I'm a well-documented Michael Bisping fan. Ask 20 people in the United States. Don't ask them in Canada or the UK or Ireland, and I know Ireland is its own country, and I hope it is free forever. Ask people, and they'll be like, yeah, Bisping's the fucking champion of the world. Middleweight champion of the world. Ask people in San Diego, and they'll be like, oh, that guy's not the real fucking champ. Well, you can't have it both ways. Nobody's the real champ. Doesn't matter. Doesn't mean anything. Means something to Mike, means something to George, because it means something to some of us still, and it will still mean something to some of us gradually, less and less over time as this disruption continues, until it's 40% of people even give a shit. Do they care in boxing? They only care about like Floyd's belt and the heavyweight title belt. Yes, everybody's holding up a belt every fucking fight. Some guys are holding up 4 belts. Meaningless. Doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean shit. Not a fucking thing. What matters is the fight. And George has dedicated his life to a moment in time where in a pair of little tight underpants with a fleur-de-lis on the side, he's going to walk into this thing and fight this fucking savage of a British guy in front of all of you. You think he feels guilty? Think about it. None of that matters. And I'm okay if you push back on that, because I know we're all different. I know it matters in some ways to you. But you're going to see, one thing I will prepare you for, you're going to see way more of this. Guys are fighting in between divisions, in between all kinds of stuff. Pretty soon they're going to try and bring in some awesome football player against an awesome baseball player. I don't like it either, but you're going to see it. Because all this other stuff that we've lived, these artificial institutions that we've built, like rankings and weight divisions, I know weight is an important part of combat. But once we get guys being way better than other ones, or way more creative than other ones, they'll be able to beat guys bigger than them. We've seen it at times, but it's in times of disruption. But you're going to see it. It's happening. A lot of times things are happening right in front of your eyes, and a certain percentage of us early adopters were like, okay, that's what's happening. There's no doubt. We see it. It's everywhere. Fucking Stipe wants to fight Joshua. He doesn't care that John Jones wants to fight fucking some Brock Lesnar. This guy's fighting Floyd Mayweather. That fucking pro wrestler didn't know how to fight, came in and fought some kid that they found it. Like, look at it. It's undeniable. It's undeniable. I used to work in cable television, and I heard in that building, as it was happening every single day, right in front of them. YouTube. You know? Undeniable. But what feels undeniable to some of us is clearly deniable to others. But it doesn't mean anything. I'll tell you, George, is certainly not feeling any kind of guilt. And by all means, I'm not saying you have to. And this will become normal. This will become very normal. But not everybody will agree. There'll still be entire swaths of the internet and other places where you and others like you, the rankings is what matter, you'll still have your world you can live in where that still matters. You can get frustrated over this and encourage each other to get frustrated, and that's okay. It's your life, your reality, and it's totally fair. But same thing. Twitter beefs and, oh my God, these guys really hate each other, and can you believe this, and the gossip and the drama, that's going to continue. It'll probably be MMA fighting, and no offense to those guys, but they own that. They own that whole fucking thing, and they'll keep it alive as it changes. And you see other websites going, man, we can't compete. This guy breaks all the stories. We're not going to be able to break all the stories. And this guy gets the chance because Ariel, and he's a good dude, and I support him doing what he does very well. He corners the market. All of them will come on his show. He will bring those details out of all of them, and he will spread it to the world. You can't beat Ariel. Any of you guys want to play in that arena, you're never going to beat him. So that's theirs, and they'll keep it alive. Smartly, you're seeing all these other sites start to try to do other things because you're fucked, man. You want to compete with Ariel Helwani? He owns that, and he always will. Actually, nothing is always, but dude's very smart, very hardworking, and very driven, and he'll be able to hold that real estate and for a long time. Some young kid or girl may come up and one day disrupt him, but currently that dude is going to break every story. That guy's going to get everybody on Monday, and they're going to be the best at writing those types of articles. So if you want to do that, good luck to you, but that belongs to them. So that'll always still be there. There'll always still be people who care about rankings. There'll always still be people who look at the lineal title. But you cannot deny that large amounts of the world care deeply about the martial arts now that didn't 10 years ago. And you cannot deny that large percentage of the world do not care about rankings and belts. And these segments will continue. When I used to talk about, oh man, the gossip and the drama, we gotta get rid of that. I'll let you in on a secret. I never believed you would. But I felt that you had to push back so hard that we lived in a world where the way we spoke about fighting was about 60% conflict and drama, and about 30% rankings and what's next, and 10% or less was on the martial arts themselves. And I felt that, and hoped and dreamed as somebody who cared, not that I get to fucking run fighting, but if I could have any influence, I was hoping one day it would be 50% or more of the fight itself. Fighting, the martial arts, training, coaching, learning, the contests, the technical stuff, and even deeper layers like we're trying to explore now as best we can. I hoped it would be that way. I didn't want to stamp out that stuff. It's not my fucking place to stamp it out, but I certainly wasn't going to be able to expand that or influence the expansion of that by going, wouldn't it be great if we, did a little more looking at the actual technique? You have to be aggressive. And so I was aggressive. Truth is, there's always going to be people who have every right to enjoy the storytelling, whether that be Ariel or a guy like Mike Chiappetta, or any of these guys that are very good at that. There's always going to be a place for that, and there's always going to be people who love it, and I'm glad there'll always be a place. But I wanted to carve out, and I didn't get it all, but I influenced the carving out. I know I did. Maybe only this much. Maybe none. Maybe you think none at all. That's okay. But my goal, and Jack Slack, Lawrence Kenshin, people like BJJ Scout, the OGs of that, we wanted to carve that out so it was closer to 50-50 or even more fighting and less drama. And we've done a pretty good job. We have. A lot of people know about fighting now that had no idea. They would have been talking about the rankings. Now, big percentage of us don't even give a fuck about those fake rankings. I'm very proud. Very proud. Whatever tiny role I played, and it may be tiny, and you may think it's not at all. That's okay. I know. I had a little role in that. Do you think Dana gave GSP back to Bisping because he thinks Tyron would beat him? This does fall into that area as well. I'll answer it very simply, as best I can. Again, if we allow ourselves to get tangled, I think, it's George's golden boy. Connor gets the push. That's phantom push. Like, that's a thing. Do they spend more money to advertise Ronda and Connor than they do Amanda Nunes? Yeah, but the push isn't a thing like, well, let's try to make fucking Mark the biggest fighting star in the world. You can't do it. It's not just choose anybody and drop them in the process and it works. You go and find somebody who has incredible star power, and then you say, nobody. So you together, we made 3 movies this year. Each one cost $50 million. This one's a piece of shit. This one's amazing, and this one's not bad. Which one are we going to spend the advertising budget on? Sorry, let's try that again. This one's a piece of shit. This one will be incredibly popular and successful and is really good or pretty good. This one is an incredible art house piece of ultimate greatness, but we're not sure if people will buy it. So this one is Damian Maia, maybe. This one's Conor McGregor. This one's CM Punk. Wait a second, they spent money on that. Fuck. That sucks. Because this had some of this too. Guy can't fucking fight. This guy's the greatest fighter of all time. Where'd we spend it? We did spend it here. But where'd we put the big money? Where all of it comes together. Put the big money where it all comes together. So all you're doing is selling a movie. They do the exact same thing when a movie's made. The record business used to do the exact same thing. They would go and assess and go, which one of these records will actually work? Okay, that's where we'll put the money. It's not like, well, man, if only Jorge got the push. Trust me, if I ran the budgets, all the money goes to Jorge Masvidal. We're all just Jorge everywhere. Shots of Jorge, fucking everything's hashtag easy money and ho time and whatever the fuck. Cub Swanson, that's what we're running. But all it is an expenditure of marketing dollars. And you don't just randomly choose it. You got all kinds of fucking, oh God, even talking about this makes me sick to my stomach, to be honest. They bring in experts. They bring in people who analyze data. They bring in people who look at Q rating. They analyze the amounts of followers they have. Basically what they're saying, what they're looking at is, this person is an absolute superstar. If we did nothing, they'd be a superstar. So let's spend some money there and speed up the process. God, I hate any of that. How did we get on this topic? That just made me feel terrible about life. But what was the actual question? Because now I was like, there's no such thing as the push, and then I just explained that there is. There is, but there is on movies too, and it's all decided by people. They don't do it because they randomly choose someone. They do it because they are certain that this will be massively successful if they give it some amount of financial support to speed it. So there is a push. But there's no such thing as boxing. Oh yeah, so Dana gave GSP to Bisping because he thinks Tyron would beat him. So we get into these complex things. This is pro wrestling thinking, right? And a lot of the fans and the journalists of pro wrestling, journalists of MMA came from pro wrestling, so they're ingrained in this type of thinking. If Tyron beat George, wouldn't it make Tyron a bigger star? If Bisping beats George, Bisping's gonna retire. I don't know. Who cares? I don't care about any of that. Oh God, thinking about how to spend your money on making people stars somehow just made me feel so dirty. It just really did. It really did. But I guess what I was getting at is when Conor McGregor or Ronda Rousey or Paige Van Zandt or Sage Northcutt, they're still either going to win or they're going to lose. They're still either going to capture the audience's imagination or they're not. They're still either going to, be able to do it or not. Ronda got kicked in the head. She got knocked unconscious. And you know what's weird about that? If you want to look at the data, the analysis, the biggest stars in all of women's fighting are Cyborg and Holly Holm. They're the biggest. And I'm talking math, not talking like who we like better. Joanna Jędrzejczyk to me is fucking just a genius. Holly, I'm a big fan of, and Cyborg. But they are. Holly knocked her out. Cyborg was her arch enemy that never did it, never got to fight her. I mean, it carried through. It did. Money wasn't wasted, depending on, and I don't mean that in any way that I give a shit. I mean that if you care about that kind of stuff. God, this is why I never go down these. These are rabbit holes that just, I'm down there and I'm like, it's raining and cold down here. There's no food. There's nothing to nourish me. Other rabbit holes about martial arts themselves or things that I learn something. Here, I learn things that are just not, I don't want to know. I do not want to know about that stuff. And I think it's a real, I don't know. I said in something recently that we don't watch gossip stuff, we don't watch drama stuff, and I didn't mean in fighting. You can, as a fan of football or fighting or whatever, watch whatever you want. But in general, if you wake up in the morning, you watch CNN and that breaking news thing is on there and Trump did something and you're mad or the press said something, fake news, you're mad about that, whatever you're mad about, this is not serving us well. I gotta wipe that off. Let's go to something. Hopefully this is something about fighting. Okay, one more. Okay, so again, we're kind of getting into the old conversation. I'm not judging your questions. Will this guy beat this guy? And what did they prefer this? And what did Dana say? And is he all of this to me? And I'm not, again, please don't think I'm judging your questions. You're taking things that you've seen a lot of, and now you're phrasing your curiosity through lenses that have been given to you before. Who does this guy deserve a title shot? Deserve. Think we got that one. Rankings or weight divisions and deserve. We got that. Did Dana give this guy because this guy's, all of that is pro wrestling stuff, right? And then we got one more like that. I'm trying not to be a dick about it. Please forgive me if I'm trying to go down these things that I tend to typically avoid to see maybe what's here and try to learn myself, right? So will Bisping retire after this fight? That question I'm happy to look at. And who should Robert Whittaker defend the interim title against after the fight? So the next one is, the second half is, what's next for so-and-so? That's an old school pro wrestling question that is part of that old collection of questions that we hung on to a little too long. And you can still find over at, I'm not picking on MMA fighting. I know it's going to sound, so Robin Black's throwing the shade at. This is what they do. They do it very well, and there's a whole world of people who love it who think I talk absolute nonsense. So please don't think I'm doing that. But this is, you can get that there. But Robert Whittaker, if I have to pick, why do I not like to? Because I'm just, whatever, man. Give me the fight. Like speculating on what. So I just figured it out. John Pollock is a very good friend of mine. He's one of the experts in the world of wrestling, and I watch him do his thing. And the game of wrestling is anticipating writing, right? That is one of the cool things that these guys love to do. They are speculating on what writers may decide. Who are they going to go with to win the Royal Rumble, right? They speculate. Oh, I think it'll be this guy because what that'll do is set up this. Okay? This is real fucking fighting, right? Line them up and let's look at the fight. I don't care what the writers might do. And I'm not judging the pro wrestling. I keep saying something and then say, I'm not judging. I'm truly not. It's an Ask Robin Black thing. And Robin Black is giving it his answer. The reason I keep saying I'm not judging or I'm saying do what you want is I know by giving my answer, it may feel like I'm saying other answers are wrong. I'm not. I'm simply giving you mine. But I don't care what the writers come up with. And there are no writers in fighting. There is an organization that makes a decision based on what will make money and no other factor. I was going to say there are other factors, but there's not many. And that's not a judgment on the UFC either. If I can, you know what, Apple, this is my iPhone. You know how they'll decide on the next iPhone? Money. The future, where it's going. Either in the short term we can make money or in the long term we can make money. And in fighting there often isn't the long term, so it almost has to be the short term. So I would love to see Robert Whittaker fight any number of the top middleweights, any of them, because I fucking love that kid. But it'll probably be Chris Weidman. And will Mike retire? I think Mike will retire. The fuck else? What me? Mike, if you're watching this, and I know Mike does watch a fair bit of our stuff. Two things. Mike, can I come down to LA and interview you about the George St-Pierre documentary? I'm going to send you a text. When I fly down with the crew, we'll come to your house or wherever and just get 15, 20 minutes on the GSP fight. Because it's a big documentary, it's important. Secondly, Mike, fucking retire after this, man. Dude. Anderson Silva, George St-Pierre, Avenge Dan Henderson, UFC champ. Get the fuck out, man. You got lots of money. You know, you've done everything you need to do. Get the fuck out. Of course Mike should retire. And I hope he does. At the same time, I said I hope he does. You'll never catch me go, oh, dude, this guy should retire. It's always up to the athlete. That's a conversation for another day. But George, win or lose, Mike, win or lose, I think Mike will retire, and he's done everything ever needed to do, and he better be a Hall of Famer too, and I'll be a fan of Mike's forever. Mike, if I get down there in September, October, November, if you're still drinking beer, let's have one. And please let me, I want to talk to you about George for this thing. And it'll be Whittaker versus George, if George still wants to fight, or it'll be Whittaker against Chris Weidman. And I feel a little dirty today. And I really hope I didn't offend anybody. And I mean that sincerely, not because just because I don't want to be rude, I'm trying to be a better person. And it's hard to answer some questions sometimes and give your answer, passionately answer what matters to you without making it, people will very often jump to the conclusion that by saying I love this, that means that I think this sucks. And I don't. You have every right to enjoy this great sport any way you want to enjoy it. And, Bisping, Tyron Woodley, George St-Pierre. I'm going to see George again in a couple of weeks, and I'll have more back to report on that. Thank you guys for hanging. Ask Robin Black is typically one of my very favorite things. Today I felt a little dirty, but maybe I'll grow because of it. Thank you so much. Blackout.